Cale wiped the grease from his hands and squinted at the small monitor in front of him. The repair station's lights flickered as another asteroid passed by, casting long shadows across the metal floor. It was quiet. Too quiet for Cale's liking, but he didn't mind. Working alone was part of the job, and he liked it that way. Just me, the tools, and the stars, he muttered to himself, adjusting a panel on a shuttle engine. The station creaked and hummed, responding to the movements of countless machines in orbit. It was routine work, simple, safe. That is, until the alarm blared. The siren cut through the calm like a laser beam. Red lights flashed across the room, and Cale's heart jumped. A ship was entering the station's vicinity at an impossible speed. He ran to the control deck, fingers flying over the console. On the screen, a battered vessel spun out of control, trailing sparks and smoke. Cale swallowed hard. He had seen crashes before, but this was different. The ship wasn't just damaged, it was screaming danger. Without thinking, he grabbed a toolkit and ran to the docking bay. The ship's hull was scarred, metal bent in unnatural angles, and the landing gear barely clinging on. Steam hissed from ruptured pipes, and small explosions flared from the engines. Cale ducked behind a cargo crate just as a piece of the ship's hull snapped off and skidded past him. Then he saw her, the Beastwoman. She was massive, her body covered in a mix of fur and armor plating. Her eyes glowed faintly gold, sharp and intelligent. Muscles coiled under her skin, showing power even when she was trapped. Her hands clenched the controls, knuckles white. She growled softly, a sound that was both terrifying and strangely human. Cale's first instinct was to step back. Any normal person would. But Cale wasn't normal. Or at least he didn't think of himself that way. He saw the desperation in her eyes, the fear behind the controlled growl. "Okay," he muttered to himself, taking a deep breath. "You can do this, just don't die." He ran forward, using his small stature and speed to dodge falling debris. He reached the side of the ship and found the cockpit jammed. A shard of metal had pierced the door, keeping it locked. Cale examined the lock carefully. It wasn't impossible, but it required precision and speed. The station trembled again as the asteroid shifted nearby. Cale jammed a crowbar between the door and the frame and pried. Sparks flew. The Beastwoman hissed inside, but Cale didn't stop. After a few tense moments, the door popped open just enough for him to squeeze in. "Hold on," he said, sliding inside. The cockpit smelled of burnt metal and smoke. Controls flickered with sparks. The Beastwoman's tail lashed nervously, knocking small tools off the side. Her glowing eyes fixed on him, sharp and assessing. "You're human," she said finally, her voice a low growl but clear. Cale swallowed. "Yeah, and you're, definitely not human." Her lips curled into something like a snarl or a smile. It was hard to tell. "I need the ship fixed." "No," Cale nodded. "I got this, just don't panic." The ship shuddered violently. Cale grabbed a loose wire and started reconnecting it, improvising as sparks flew around him. The Beastwoman watched, tail twitching, her massive hands hovering over the controls but not touching them. Cale could feel her strength, and a tiny part of him wished she would grab him and throw him across the cockpit just to see what would happen. But he stayed focused. "Engines fried," Cale muttered, examining the damage. "And the gravity system's failing." "Okay, that's bad, that's really bad," the Beastwoman growled. "Then fix it." Cale bit back a nervous laugh. "Yeah, working on it." He rummaged through his toolkit, pulling out spare parts, wires, and sensors. He worked fast, improvising solutions where he could. Each second counted. Outside, the asteroid belt trembled, rocks shifting and smashing together. If he didn't act quickly, they'd all be crushed. He noticed her looking at him differently now. Not with fear or annoyance, but with interest. Maybe she was impressed. Cale didn't care about that right now. Survival was enough. "Okay," Cale said, connecting a wire. "That should reroute the engine. Now for the gravity stabilizers." The Beastwoman leaned closer. "Hurry!" Cale's hands shook slightly as he worked. Sparks flew, wires sparked, and the ship groaned as if in pain. Then finally he heard it, a low hum. The engines were stabilizing, just enough to keep the ship from spinning out of control. The Beastwoman's eyes narrowed. "Not bad. For a human," Cale grinned. "Thanks. For the compliment, I think." A loud crack echoed as a large chunk of asteroid collided with the station. The floor shuddered. Cale's heart pounded. He looked at the Beastwoman. She wasn't scared. She never looked scared. But Cale knew she was aware of the danger. They were both alive for the moment, but the asteroid field was collapsing. "We need to move." "Now," she said. Cale nodded. He moved quickly, connecting the final wires. The ship's systems blinked back to life. Lights glowed steadily. The engines roared. The cockpit shivered, but it was under control. Got it, Kyle said, wiping sweat from his brow. We're mostly stable. The Beastwoman studied him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she did something Cale didn't expect. She extended a massive clawed hand toward him. You trust me? Cale froze. Yeah? Yeah. I trust you. Her claws didn't close in anger. Instead, they touched his shoulder briefly, a gesture of acknowledgement. Good, you will need trust soon, Cale blinked. Soon? She didn't answer. Instead, she adjusted the controls, preparing to launch the ship. Hold on, she said. Her voice had an edge now, a promise and a warning. This is just the beginning. The asteroid field around them trembled again. Cale gripped the nearest support beam, ready for whatever came next. He had no idea what kind of being the Beastwoman really was or what missions awaited her. But one thing was certain. Humans like him didn't back down from impossible situations. And right now, surviving this fall was only the first step. The ship trembled like a wounded animal as Cale adjusted the last of the wires he had rigged. Outside, the asteroid field continued its deadly dance. Rocks and ice collided, sending showers of debris spiraling through space. Cale could feel the ship shaking under every impact, but it held together, for now. The Beastwoman sat tall in the pilot's seat, her massive hands hovering over the controls. Her golden eyes tracked every movement of the ship, every shift in momentum. She was a creature of strength, power, and speed, but now she relied on Kyle, a small human with dirt under his nails and grease on his hands. You're fast, she said quietly, almost as if testing him. Cale didn't look up. Fast isn't enough, he replied, voice tight with concentration. We need clever. And lucky. Her lips curled in something like a snarl, or maybe it was a smile. He couldn't tell. We have little of both, she said. He wiped his forehead with the back of his hand and focused on the next problem. The engines. They were unstable. The rudimentary repair he had made gave just enough thrust to prevent a complete spiral, but they needed more power. Cale climbed into the narrow space beneath the controls, crawling over wires and panels. Sparks flew as he tightened loose connections. Gravity systems? She asked, tail flicking nervously. Cale gritted his teeth. Almost there. I can stabilize them temporarily, but it won't last long, she hissed softly. Then we must hurry. The asteroid field won't wait. Cale's mind raced. He scanned the control board for a solution. Some of the stabilizers were fried, their circuits melted by the initial crash. He rummaged through the spare parts he had grabbed from the station earlier, improvising. He connected a series of sensors to reroute power, improvising a crude stabilizer using scraps and ducted energy conduits. Careful, the Beastwoman growled as sparks showered between his fingers. I am, Cale muttered, gritting his teeth. Mostly. Finally, the system hummed. Lights on the dashboard glowed steadily. Gravity stabilized slightly, enough to prevent the ship from spinning uncontrollably. Cale exhaled. That should do it for now. Engines need fine-tuning, but we won't spin apart in zero gravity anymore. The Beastwoman's golden eyes narrowed, scrutinizing his work. Not bad, you have human ingenuity. Kyle chuckled weakly. Human ingenuity, luck, and a bit of stubbornness. The ship jolted violently. Cale's stomach dropped. A huge chunk of asteroid smashed against the hull. Sparks flew and an alarm blared. Cale scrambled to secure a panel that had loosened. The Beastwoman's tail lashed, knocking over a small container of tools. He caught it just in time. Focus, little human, she growled. Your life depends on this. Kyle swallowed hard. She wasn't wrong. Every second counted. He connected a failing energy conduit to the makeshift stabilizer. Sparks arced across the panel. His hands shook, but he didn't stop. Every wire, every sensor, every bolt mattered. You're reckless, she said, tail flicking again. But effective. Cale smirked despite himself. Thanks? She didn't respond. Instead, she adjusted the ship's orientation slightly, taking the weight off one of the engines so he could work. Even a Beastwoman recognized talent when she saw it. Cale worked faster, rerouting energy lines, replacing fuses, improvising where he could. He was small, but his hands moved with precision and his mind worked faster than the hazards around him. Outside, the asteroid field shifted. A massive rock threatened to collide with the ship, its shadow sweeping over the hull. Kale's pulse quickened. "Get ready," he muttered. The Beastwoman nodded. "Now." With a flick of her tail, she triggered a minor thrust that pulled the ship sideways just enough to avoid the incoming rock. The ship shuddered, but it survived. Kale clung to the metal framework, heart pounding. He had one more problem: the main engines. They were barely functional, and without them, the ship wouldn't have enough thrust to escape the crumbling asteroid field. He crawled under the engine housing, examining the damage. Burnt circuits, cracked conduits, and a misaligned stabilizer made a deadly combination. Kale took a deep breath and dove in. He disconnected the faulty parts, replacing them with the spare components he had scavenged from the station. His hands moved quickly, threading wires through tight spaces, securing panels, testing circuits. Sparks flew. The smell of burnt metal filled the cabin. The Beastwoman watched silently, her glowing eyes focused, unblinking. "You may be fragile," she said finally, "but your mind is strong." Kale didn't answer. He couldn't. One mistake and the ship, and they, would fall. Minutes felt like hours. The ship shuddered with every shift in the asteroid field. Kale finished connecting the final circuit. He flipped the switch, the engines roared to life. A steady vibration ran through the hull. Kale smiled, exhausted. "We're back in business." "Mostly." The Beastwoman leaned back slightly. "You are remarkable human." "I underestimated you," Kale shrugged. "Doesn't take much, just focus." Another jolt shook the ship violently. A massive piece of rock tore past, narrowly missing the hull. The ship rocked. Kale grabbed a handhold, heart racing. "We need to move now," she said. Her voice was calm but sharp. "The asteroid field is collapsing. Any delay and we are dead." Kyle nodded. "I know. Give me a second to reroute power to the main thrusters." He moved to the main console, connecting the improvised stabilizer to the thrusters. The ship's response was immediate. It leveled slightly, engines humming steadily. Kale grinned, adrenaline pumping. "There! We can move safely. Relatively." The Beastwoman's tail twitched, her ears flattening slightly. "You are human. You adapt quickly, perhaps faster than some of my own people." Kale laughed. "Thanks, I think. But I'd rather survive than earn compliments." She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she adjusted the controls, testing the ship's new stability. The hum of the engines was steady. Lights blinked normally. The ship no longer trembled dangerously. Kale exhaled deeply. "All right. That's as good as it gets now. Let's get out of here before more asteroids fall." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "You may be small. You may be fragile. But you are clever. That is rare." Kale's stomach tightened. He didn't fully understand her words, but he knew one thing. She trusted him. And in a situation like this, trust was more valuable than any weapon. The asteroid field outside shifted again, massive rocks smashing into smaller debris. Kale and the Beastwoman both braced as the ship rocked. The engines whined under the strain, but the makeshift fixes held. "You have saved us," she said finally, her voice low and deliberate. "I owe you something." Kyle looked at her, curious. "Oh, what's that?" Her glowing eyes met his. "Perhaps. Your life is owed to you, human, but soon. You may owe me more." Kyle swallowed. "More?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached over and adjusted the controls for the next maneuver. The ship was stable now, but the danger wasn't over. The asteroid field was still collapsing, and beyond it waited the unknown. Kyle realized something. This wasn't just about repairing a ship. This was a test of skill, courage, and endurance. And if he passed, it might open a door to something far bigger than he had ever imagined. The Beastwoman shifted slightly, her massive frame tense and ready. "Prepare yourself, human. We are leaving the safety of this station. What comes next will require everything you have." Kyle nodded, gripping the nearest handle. His hands were scraped and burned, his body tense, but he felt alive. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't just a mechanic. He was part of something greater. And as the ship hummed steadily, Kale understood one thing clearly. Survival was just the beginning. The ship trembled violently, shaking Kale's stomach like a roller coaster thrown into zero gravity. Outside, the asteroid field churned, massive rocks colliding and fracturing, sending clouds of debris into the dark void. Every second counted, and Kale's heart raced faster than the ship's engines. The Beastwoman's tail lashed nervously behind her, and her golden eyes scanned the incoming hazards with deadly precision. She didn't speak at first. Instead, she tightened her grip on the controls, testing the ship's response to Kale's repairs. The engines held, just barely, but one wrong move and they would be shredded. Kyle's mind raced. "We need more control," he muttered under his breath, eyes darting between flashing panels. The improvised stabilizers were good enough for steady travel, but the ship was plummeting through a shifting storm of rock. He needed precision and fast. "You have done well, human," the Beastwoman said finally, her voice calm but firm. "But now, it is not enough. The field is collapsing faster than expected. We must act," Kale nodded. "I can manage, but I'll need guidance." She studied him for a moment, then tilted her massive head. "Do you trust yourself?" Kale blinked. "I think so." Her golden eyes glowed brighter. "Then you will trust yourself. Take the controls." Kale froze. The ship shuddered violently, throwing him against the console. "Wait, what?" The Beastwoman didn't flinch. She reached over and handed him the control yoke. "Now," she commanded. "You steer. I will guide you, but your hands must move with me or we die." Kale's mind spun. He had never piloted a ship this large, let alone under conditions this extreme. The asteroid field outside was a tornado of jagged rocks, and the ship was plummeting through it like a stone. Sweat trickled down his temples. "Okay," he muttered, gripping the controls. "Here goes nothing." The ship lurched violently as he tried to stabilize it. The Beastwoman's eyes narrowed, and she barked out instructions in a mix of growls and precise commands. Kale followed, twisting the controls, pulling levers, and balancing thrust with careful judgment. Sparks flew from the panel, alarms blared, but the ship responded. Slowly, agonizingly, it began to move with purpose. "You are slower than I expected," she growled, her tail flicking like a whip. "But you survive," Kyle swallowed. "I'm getting faster!" Another massive rock hurtled toward them. Kale twisted the yoke sharply, engines screaming in protest. The ship twisted midair, avoiding the rock by mere inches. His heart pounded, and he realized something incredible. He could do this. He could actually do this. The Beastwoman's eyes softened slightly, a rare expression for someone so fierce. "Impressive," she said. "Few survive this field without damage. You, human, you adapt." Kyle's fingers flew over the controls, adjusting thrusters, rerouting power, and dodging debris. His mind worked faster than his body. Every move was calculated, every breath measured. The ship shuddered, but he felt the pulse of life in it responding to him, obeying him. Then disaster struck. A massive chunk of asteroid, larger than their ship, fractured and tumbled directly toward them. The Beastwoman's eyes widened. "Brace yourself." Kale's hands tightened. He twisted the controls, engines screaming. The ship lurched violently, metal groaning under the strain. Sparks flew as systems overloaded, but Kale held on. They passed the rock by mere centimeters, the heat of friction making the hull hiss. Kyle gasped, heart hammering. "That was close," the Beastwoman growled softly. "You did well. Most would have panicked. Most would be dead." Kale wiped sweat from his brow. "Thanks, I think." The ship trembled again. Kale's stomach dropped. "We're not out of this yet," he muttered. "No," she replied, eyes scanning the chaos outside. "The field is worse than I anticipated. We must ascend quickly or we are lost." Kyle nodded, adjusting the yoke. He twisted and pulled levers, rerouting power from non-essential systems to the engines. Sparks shot across the console and alarms blared, but the ship responded. Slowly it began to climb, fighting against the pull of gravity from nearby asteroids and the downward trajectory of the collapsing field. "You are learning fast," the Beastwoman said. "Perhaps humans are not as weak as many believe." Kyle grinned despite the terror. "Maybe not." A sharp jolt threw him forward. Another rock smashed against the hull, cracking a small panel. Kale scrambled to stabilize the ship. His hands moved faster than thought, instinct guiding him. Outside the asteroid field was a blur, fragments colliding, exploding, and spinning chaotically. "We need more speed," the Beastwoman said. "The field will not wait." Kyle's mind worked furiously. The engines could take more power, but only for a few seconds. If he pushed too far, they would fry completely. He calculated the timing, his fingers flying over the controls. "Hold on," he muttered. "We're going to boost." With a sudden surge, he redirected energy to the engines. The ship roared, thrusting forward, dodging debris with incredible precision. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits, alarms screamed, but the ship moved with purpose. The Beastwoman leaned forward slightly, impressed. You human, you have courage, Kale panted. Not courage, just no choice. Another massive collision shook the ship, throwing them both violently. Kale gritted his teeth, adjusting thrust mid-fall. He could feel the metal bending, the hull straining under the pressure. Outside, a fragment of rock tore through the void, spinning toward them. Twist left. Hard, the Beastwoman barked. Kyle obeyed instantly. The ship lurched, engines screaming, sparks flying from stressed conduits. They passed the fragment by inches. Kale's stomach dropped as they soared past it, adrenaline coursing through his veins. You have survived more than I expected, the Beastwoman said softly. Perhaps humans are more capable than I believed. Kale chuckled, gripping the controls tightly. I'm full of surprises. The asteroid field ahead began to thin slightly, though massive fragments still loomed dangerously. Kale adjusted the yoke, steering carefully. We're almost out. Just a little more. The Beastwoman's tail twitched. You may live. But the danger is not over. Trust yourself, human. Kale swallowed, heart racing. I can do this. They moved as one, pilot and mechanic, Beastwoman and human. The ship responded to every adjustment, every command, every risk taken. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, and the void outside was chaos, but Kale held the controls. Finally, the asteroid field began to thin, the massive rocks giving way to open space. The ship shuddered, but held together. Kale exhaled deeply, finally allowing himself a small smile. The Beastwoman leaned back, studying him. You have survived the fall. You have earned respect. For now. Kale wiped sweat from his brow, heart still pounding. For now? She didn't answer immediately. Her golden eyes softened slightly. You have potential, human. Do not waste it. Soon you will face tests far greater than this. Kyle nodded, still gripping the controls. I'm ready. For whatever comes next. For the first time, he felt more than survival. He felt power. The raw, exhilarating power of overcoming impossible odds. And as the stars stretched ahead, he knew this was only the beginning. The Beastwoman's ship floated steadily now, engines humming, systems stabilizing. Kale glanced at her, a smile tugging at his lips. Not bad for a human, huh? She gave a low growl that might have been approval. Perhaps. But do not grow overconfident. The universe is unforgiving. Kale laughed, exhaustion mixed with excitement. I'll keep that in mind. And as they soared through space, leaving the collapsing asteroid field behind, Kale realized something important. Humans might be small, fragile and underestimated, but when pushed to the edge, nothing could match their courage, their quick thinking, and their will to survive. The real journey, he knew, was only beginning. The asteroid field was behind them, but the danger was far from over. Kale's hands ached from gripping the controls, his knuckles white, sweat dripping down his forehead. The Beastwoman watched silently, her golden eyes sharp and calculating, tracking every blip on the console. The engines are unstable, Kyle muttered, scanning the panels. We can survive in open space, but any major malfunction. We're done, the Beastwoman's tail flicked. Then we must prioritize survival. Not the ship. Life first, Kale nodded. She was right. The makeshift repairs had held through the asteroid storm, but pushing the engines further could tear the ship apart. He redirected power to the shields and gravity stabilizers, sacrificing some thrust. The ship hummed steadily, but only just. Outside, vast chunks of asteroids still drifted through space, remnants of the collapsing field. Kale steered carefully, twisting and tilting the ship to avoid the larger fragments. Each movement sent jolts through the hull. He could feel the metal groaning under stress. This is fine, he muttered, though his heart pounded. Mostly fine. The Beastwoman's voice cut through his thoughts. You are cautious. That is good. But caution will not always save you. Sometimes you must act, Kale's brow furrowed. Act how? You will see soon, she replied. Her eyes were unreadable, but her tone left no doubt. More danger was coming. Kale adjusted the yoke, carefully dodging a large fragment that spun slowly toward them. Sparks flew from a nearby console as a small panel cracked under the strain. Kale's stomach dropped. Not again, he muttered, securing the loose part with tape and wire. Suddenly, a massive shadow loomed across the viewport. Kale froze. A colossal ship, alien in design, blocked their path. Its surface was sleek, dark, and bristling with unknown technology. It moved slowly but deliberately, cutting off any escape route. The Beastwoman's eyes narrowed. We are not alone, she said softly. Prepare yourself, human. They will challenge us, Kale swallowed hard. We can fight it? Not yet, she said. We survive first. Then we fight. He nodded, adrenaline surging. Kale had survived an asteroid field. He could survive this too. He maneuvered the ship, dodging smaller debris while the massive alien vessel loomed closer. The ship's sensors went haywire as it emitted pulses of unknown energy. Sparks flew across the dashboard. Kale adjusted the shields, trying to compensate. The Beastwoman leaned over his shoulder, tail coiling around the seat for balance. Power to engines. We must escape. I will guide you. Kale followed her instructions, rerouting energy from non-essential systems to engines. The ship lurched, thrusting forward. He twisted and pulled, dodging the alien vessel's line of sight. Every second felt like a minute. The larger ship adjusted, trying to intercept them, but Kale and the Beastwoman moved as one, anticipating each maneuver. Almost. There? Kyle shouted, pushing the engines to their limit. A sudden jolt threw him forward, knocking a tool off the console. He caught it just in time. Outside, the alien ship fired a pulse of energy that slammed into the hull. Sparks flew, panels cracked, and the ship groaned. Kale's stomach twisted, but he gritted his teeth and adjusted the controls. The Beastwoman growled. Do not falter, human. Trust yourself. Kale exhaled sharply. He had no choice. He twisted the yoke, rerouted more energy, and pushed the ship through a narrow gap between two massive asteroid fragments. The alien vessel followed, but the ship's shields held just long enough. We are clear. For now, the Beastwoman said, though her tail lashed anxiously. Kale panted, gripping the controls tightly. For now, he echoed. They were in open space, engines humming steadily, shields barely holding. Kale allowed himself a brief moment of relief. The asteroid field was behind them, the alien ship momentarily out of range. But he knew the danger was not over. The Beastwoman leaned back, watching him. You are human. You survive against impossible odds. That is remarkable. Few of my kind would have lasted this long. Kale wiped sweat from his brow. Thanks for noticing. She gave a low growl, almost like a laugh. Do not grow arrogant. The universe does not forgive mistakes. You are skilled, but skill alone will not save you. Kale nodded, heart still racing. I get it. No mistakes. A sudden alert flashed on the console. Sensors detected massive gravitational turbulence ahead. Kale's stomach dropped. The ship would be pulled into the gravity well if they didn't act fast. Twist left. Full power, the Beastwoman shouted. Kale obeyed, twisting the yoke violently. The ship lurched, engines screaming, shields straining. Sparks flew across the console. Panels cracked. The hull groaned, but the ship responded. Slowly, agonizingly, they escaped the pull. Kyle exhaled, heart pounding. That was close. The Beastwoman's eyes softened slightly. You are learning, human. That is what makes you dangerous and valuable. Kyle smiled weakly, still gripping the yoke. Learning. Yeah, I guess I am. The ship floated steadily now, engines humming, shields stable. Kale allowed himself a brief moment to breathe. He had survived asteroid fields, near collisions, and alien pursuit, but the journey was far from over. The Beastwoman studied him, her golden eyes sharp. You have potential, but potential is nothing without courage. You have courage. That is why you live. Kyle's hand shook, but he smiled. Thanks for trusting me. She nodded slightly. Trust is earned. You have earned it, human. But be ready. What comes next will test you further. And as the stars stretched ahead, Kale felt something he had never felt before. A mixture of fear, exhilaration, and determination. He was small, fragile, and human, but he was alive. And for now, that was enough. The ship floated steadily in open space, engines humming, shields holding. Kale leaned back slightly, stretching his aching muscles. His hands were scraped and burned, his clothes stained with grease and sweat. For the first time, he allowed himself a moment of relief. The Beastwoman sat quietly, tail coiled around her seat, eyes scanning the stars. Her expression was unreadable, but Kale sensed approval. He had survived impossible odds, piloted a failing ship, and earned her trust. You have done well, human, she said finally. Her voice was calm yet powerful. Few of my kind would survive what you endured. You have earned my respect. Kale smiled faintly. Thanks. That means a lot. She tilted her massive head. Do not mistake respect for friendship. That is not yet earned, but you have potential. More than most, Kale nodded. I'll take it. A sudden alert flashed on the console. Kale's stomach sank. Sensors detected a massive gravitational anomaly ahead, a collapsing star cluster. The pull was immense, and any misstep could tear the ship apart. We cannot pass safely, Kale muttered, glancing at the Beastwoman. She growled softly. Then we must use skill, courage, and instinct. All you have learned. Now you must apply. Kale's heart raced. He had survived asteroid fields, alien pursuit, and failing engines. He could survive this. He gripped the controls, tightly focusing. All right, let's do it. They navigated through the collapsing star cluster with precision. Kale twisted the yoke, rerouted power, and adjusted shields. The ship lurched, engines screaming, metal groaning under strain. Sparks flew across the console. The Beastwoman's tail lashed as she guided him, but Kale did the piloting. Minutes felt like hours. The ship spun, dodged, and twisted through gravitational turbulence. Kale's muscles ached, but he refused to stop. Each adjustment brought them closer to safety. Finally, they cleared the last of the gravitational anomalies. The ship floated in calm space, engines humming steadily. Kale exhaled, exhaustion and relief washing over him. The Beastwoman studied him, her golden eyes softening slightly. You are remarkable, human. You have proven yourself in ways few could imagine. I underestimated humans. You have shown courage, skill, and ingenuity. Kale laughed weakly. I guess humans aren't so bad after all. She gave a low growl, almost like approval. Perhaps not. There is more to your kind than I realized. You adapt, survive, and most importantly, you think. That is rare. Kyle's smile grew. Thanks for trusting me. I hope I can live up to it, she nodded slightly. You will. But the journey is far from over. You have survived this challenge, but many more await. Are you prepared? Kale's heart raced, but he felt ready. I'm ready. Bring it on. The Beastwoman's eyes glowed softly. Then perhaps you will join me. There are missions ahead, far beyond this sector. I need someone skilled, clever, and brave. You may be that person. Kale's jaw dropped. You mean you want me to come with you? She nodded. Yes, but this is not an offer for the faint of heart. The universe is dangerous and the path ahead is perilous. Few survive, many fail, but you may endure. Kale's mind raced. He had never imagined such an opportunity. A chance to explore the stars, face unknown dangers, and prove himself beyond his tiny repair station. He nodded firmly. I'll do it. I want to try. The Beastwoman's tail flicked once, a sign of approval. Good, then the universe awaits. And humans may yet prove their worth. Kale felt a surge of pride and excitement. He had survived the fall, earned respect, and now had a chance to join a being far stronger, wiser, and more capable than he had ever met. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, full of danger and adventure, and Kale knew one thing for certain. Humans could rise to any challenge, adapt to any danger, and survive against impossible odds. The ship moved steadily forward. Kyle at the controls, the Beastwoman beside him. The universe was vast, unpredictable, and full of challenges, but together, they were ready. And for the first time,